should baby formula be free for all? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Campaigners have called for parents to have universal access to formula milk within the NHS. Now, an inquiry by the charity Feed called for something like the National Milk Programme, which provided all parents with free or heavily subsidised powder milk from 1940 to 1976. So that's something we've had. They want to bring it back. Now, you may have noticed that formula milk is getting slightly cheaper in recent months, but that's after the prices rose by a quarter to historic highs between 2021 2023, which is right when I had my first child. Lovely. Parents are still having to pay an average of £13.76 per tin. Shouldn't something as important as baby formula just be free to all? Let us know your thoughts on that. Wilfred, what's your initial thoughts on this one?
I don't think it should be free. Coming from a man, that may seem sort of terrible, but why should the state be responsible for paying for a child to be fed baby milk if it's a mother's choice? I mean, if there's no choice, if there's a medical reasons why, let's say, you can't breastfeed, I'll accept the fact that then we know we will help. And just looking through some of the help available, I think there's good help available for those with low incomes, for those who can't. So I don't think it would be right that it would be free universal just for the sake of it.
But for the women that can't breastfeed or find it difficult or can't get their supply up, because there's also a lot of women that are using both formula and breast milk because their supply just isn't enough to sustain their child.
So there's a medical reason. So it was a
well, that would be a huge percentage of the population.
Well, I don't know. But I think that at the end of the day, we have to make a distinction between choice.
Wilfred, what if you just chose not to breastfeed? Like, what if as a woman...
Well, you pay for it.
You choose not to breastfeed?
So you pay for it. Why should the rest of society be responsible for a choice that you've made?
Let me explain to you why. Because in about 20 years' time, when you're sitting back in your rocking chair, it is going to be those children who are going to be providing your care. It is going to be those children that are paying into your pension. It's going to be those children who are taking care of business and commerce around you that ensures you remain supported and have a very satisfying, hopefully, and healthy senior age.
I do not accept that argument, because what we have to try and do, and this is what's interesting about politics at the moment, where actually, are you personally responsible for your lives, or is the state responsible?
And what about society? But what about society? Are we also responsible in terms of inputting into society and also providing a supportive society?
The best way to create a supportive society is to let the individual go on and do well. The moment that people are told you have to do this and there's no choice, where is aspiration? Where is it that people could go and do great things if you're actually forced to do things that you're not doing out of choice?
We're talking about feeding a baby.
Exactly. If somebody decides to have a child, a choice, with that choice comes responsibility.
OK, I do wonder whether, Wilfred, and we'll speak about this after the break because we're hurtling towards one, but in the past we have had heavily subsidised formula milk. This was between the 1940s and 1976.
And times have changed.
And times have changed, but the price is extortionate. When we say a tin when you are feeding a child at the maximum of what they would drink will only last you a couple of days. We're not talking weeks or months here, we're talking days, so you're maybe buying 3 tins a week. That's starting to get a very big bill for the average family, not even those on the lower end of the scale. This is what our panel think, but after the break we're taking your calls on this, whether formula should be free for all. Are you now more of your calls on whether baby formula should be free for all? 0207 862 2222 is the number to give us a ring on this one. And ring you have, which is great, keep those calls coming in. We're going to speak to Jane from Worcestershire first. Jane, what's your thoughts on free formula for all?
No, I don't think we should pay it. I feel, I work full-time, have done since 16. We pay enough, I think, with child benefits that working folk get. We pay all these free child places for nursery or preschool or after-school clubs. Baby formula, I'm kind of fed up of paying for people's children. My parents didn't get it, and they did fine. My mum was of the age of the time when you gave up work when you had children. My dad was a production line worker at a car factory, and I didn't expect the public to keep paying for bits and pieces
Jane,
for the children. And baby formulas to me is like female, sanitary products. I don't think they should be. There's been arguments in the past for those to be paid for to be free. It's just part of life.
But Jane, your parents probably did get free or heavily subsidised formula if you were born between 1940 and 1978.
I don't know. You're talking about heavily subsidised. I mean, my mum, I suppose, my mum breastfed.
But what I'm saying is, you're saying that they didn't have it, but they did have it. And when you talk about paying for other people's children, I completely understand that argument in principle. But what about Paula's argument that actually those children are the ones that are going to be looking after you? Those children are the ones that are going to be paying the tax, which will be paying your pension. Those children are the future. And actually, it's shown time and time again that investment in young people in early years always pays off dividends. It always gives you far more than you pay in.
I don't know. I mean, I know my parents used to have a clinic up the road where they got some coupons for that.
Coupons for
it's all the child benefits and the free child places. I just don't think
the child benefits is interesting. The child care is a different subject. Maybe the problem is, Paula, because Jane has a very valid point that we have a benefit system already in place and there should not be a child in this country really going without food, which is an argument that is made all the time, although we know there's lots of other circumstances that happen there. So perhaps we should just rely on people to make better choices, better financial choices.
You know what, if life was simply about making better financial choices, then I would accept that. But we know that in reality, life isn't just about making a financial choice. Things happen in life that completely derail us one way or another. And I think the ethos behind this proposal, i.e. universality in relation to a baby, all babies should have the opportunity to be properly nourished up until the age of 1 or whatever it may be. Now, I don't understand Jane's argument when she says, I'm sick and tired of paying for other people's children. Why would we be, as a caring, loving, evolved society, be sick and tired of ensuring that the next generation are well cared for? And I think that's a real example of a society being able to say, I don't care who you are, I don't care where you come from. You must understand that society loves you enough, cherishes you enough, that we are going to ensure that you get the very best start in life. And that could be in terms of nursery places, that could be in terms of child benefit, it could be in terms of breakfast club. But please also remember that parents do pay for breakfast club, parents do pay for after school club. Child benefit barely covers one of those tins of milk that we're referencing.
Look, and that's a very romantic argument that you put forward too, but at the end of the day, what develops a great child is great parenting.
It's hunger. It's hunger.
No, it's good parenting. So you could give the child everything free, but if that child is not parented well, that's going to be a disaster. So it comes back to this fundamental thing, is that you as an individual is personally responsible. And therefore, if you're going to bring a child into this world, there's a lot of responsibilities that come with it, rather than expecting society is going to manage.
But Wilfred, the counter-argument to that would be, yes, we are not born equal because we're not born to this same level of parenting.
But we have more choices now than we did.
But if you have not great parents and you're malnourished, you're at an even worse stage than if you had not great parents but you were still able to have good nourishment in the beginning years. But I totally take your point, Jane. Thank you very much for calling and sharing that. Leanne from Berkshire, what's your view?
Hi, I think it should be free. Back in 1998 it was free for parents on a lower income.
Yes.
You used to get milk tokens.
It still
yeah,
is.
you can
So
exchange those.
there are certain benefits and there are certain reasons that you might be able to be prescribed milk from the NHS or that you might be able to get it free. But for the majority of us, we will have to pay.
Yeah, and for those people, I think it is going to be an ongoing problem. You're going to be having people trying to wean their babies off formula early, you know, just to get them on proper milk, which is cheaper. You'll have people weaning the babies onto, you know, the tinned food, which is going to lead to obesity. If their little bellies can't, you know, they're not ready for that sort of food yet. But I feel like parents are going to do that. Just so not to go and buy that formula because it's so expensive. And then obviously then it's shoplifting. It's going to cause shoplifting, obesity in young kids.
There's also, I mean, there's also the problem of people thinning out the formula milk, which is what most parents that are struggling will do. A lot of parents that are struggling will do, and it is incredibly bad for the child. So there are all sorts of problems involved in this. But Wilfred's right. We can't take responsibility for every child in the country. Parents have to take responsibility for caring for their children, and free formula for everyone, that's just nanny state. There are certain people that do not need free formula. I would probably not need free formula. You would probably not need free formula. So why should we be given it when we are already in a desperate state of a cost of living crisis? The government has no money.
It's the same with the breakfast clubs, though, Storm. The breakfast clubs are there for everybody, not just for the lower income children.
But is that
we can nourish them in the morning so that they have food for school. Why are we not nourishing children? You know, it is expensive. It is really, really expensive. I feel for you, Stormy. You've got it all to come.
It is expensive. Thank you. I'm glad we've all agreed on that. Leanne, thank you very much for your call. I've only got time for one more. Rosemary from Northampton, what's your view on this?
Hello, Storm. It's lovely to talk to you. I'm a grandma. It's my daughter, basically. She so wanted to breastfeed totally. She tried so very, very hard, and she cried and cried day and night. So she had to go to formula, which she didn't want to. And basically, she's basically having to pay so much, and she's on a minimal income. And I'm having to help her pay for formula now because she can't afford it.
What about the argument somebody would make that would say, you know what, when you're having a child, these are some of the things that you have to think about. You have to see these knocks coming down the road and know that you have a safety net to fall on, and we just need to take responsibility for our children.
But I think men are making these decisions sometimes. You know, they haven't got a clue, so men don't know what it's like. You know, I mean, she desperately wanted to breastfeed herself. And she can't, having to help her. But if she didn't have me, she wouldn't be able to afford the breast milk.
Yeah.
And it's not fair. You know, men are saying this, and how dare they? They don't even know what it's like.
Wilfred, what would you say to that as a man?
Well, I mean, this is an interesting story. This is somebody who desperately wanted to breastfeed, but as hard as she tried, she couldn't breastfeed. Now, I think that person is entitled to having free
you
formula.
said that earlier.
You know, so, you know, I'm sympathetic to cases like that.
But I wonder, I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, how many women really want to breastfeed and find themselves unable to. The women that I know that have breastfed, out of the 4 or 5 of them that I know in that much detail, I know 2 of them had lactation experts come round, and that is £200 a pop, and they weren't just there one time to help them. That is not something that everybody has access to. I know the NHS do their best, but as we know, they're already stretched. Rosemary, thanks for sharing your story. Penny from Kent, what's your view on this one?
Hello. No, I definitely don't think that we should be paying for baby milk. You should be preparing before you have the child for the expenses. And also there's children's allowance now that there never used to be. There's lots and lots of help out there. What will be next? We feed them, we clothe them, we pay for their shoes, their trips. I mean, what's next?
Well, shouldn't we provide a very minimum, just the nutrition for every child in the country? It's a basic. We can't make sure that every child has a great parent, but we can make sure that every child doesn't go hungry.
Well, I think it's down to the parent, the parenting. Maybe they should give up their expensive mobile phones or their smoking habit or their, you know, screens TV or something and give to the child rather than themselves.
Okay, we do hear that quite often. I mean, I don't know how much you can do with baby formula if that's physically given by prescription, but I take your point. The point comes up again and again. We already have a benefit system. If you are struggling, you're under 18, there's lots of different criteria, you're already going to get free formula. Why would you need to give fortunate individuals like ourselves and Wilfred and for his children free formula?
Well, there's two things here. It's whether it should be a universal benefit. I'm saying in this case it should be a universal benefit. I don't normally agree with universal benefits, but in this case it should. Why? Because more often than not, people like yourselves or me who are lucky enough not to need it, we won't go and use it. We won't take our coupons down to whatever relevant supermarket and get it. We just won't. But for those who are finding themselves in a situation where they do need to, they're like, yes, I can rely on that and it's not a problem. Secondly, about the fact that we are in a society where we have benefits already, etc. So why should we need to do this? Well, we already know that statistically there are about 40% of workers who are also claiming benefits. So it is not paying to be in work. We still need to rely on benefits. So just because benefits exist, it doesn't mean that they are somehow the answer to our problems. We know that baby milk is one of the top 10 things on the list for people to shoplift. That shops are having to put security tags on baby milk. We are supposed to be in a civilised society. Why am I being forced to steal to feed my baby?
We'll end the topic there, but it was a very interesting discussion and a huge thank you to everybody that called and shared their stories and opinions on that one.